time to change the world by bringing it to its knees. Attack! The future is M.O.D.O.K.
You're both a producer and the star in the show, so let's talk about the former first. What made you want to take this like ridiculous villain that we've previously like only seen on the page and bring him to the world, to the screen?
Because I wanted to see. I love that Jack Kirby deals with these massive He deals with massive cosmic powers and consequences, but they are always at the whim, and they're always tied to massive human emotions, hurts, resentments, which is a very, very real thing. If you look at history, so much of our history has been people throwing tantrums about things, and then a whole country gets wiped out. So the fact that he's doing it with a villain, and also the idea that he is this eighth dimensional intellect, but he is at D level, bottom tier villain, and is seeing other villains with more impact than him getting to play that frustration. I just thought this would be so much fun to do. And the more serious and overblown he acts about everything, the funnier it is. It's like that Repo Man style of everyone in Repo Man is saying everything deadly serious, which makes it so hilarious because they're talking about the dumbest shit. So I just love that.
There is that a lot here where it's like people are deadly serious about weaponizing manatees. You know what I mean? Like, and it's possible. It might work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We also had I knew that if we get this show going, just from the people that I know, people that I'm friends with, we're going to have such a killer voice cast for every single character. And we were able to just find, Wendy McClendon-Covey as Monica Rappaccini, who's just this constantly outraged. She's like a super Karen in a way, like that super Karen attitude. But again, with super science to back up her tantrums. Mwah. So much fun to do.
M.O.D.O.K's been around for a long time. Like, did you have to like bone up on your M.O.D.O.Klopedia, I guess you'd say, or like, figure out where we want to go with this?
Yeah, we went back and we read, his origin, his first appearance in Captain America. Then they went back and like they always do, they retcon. Oh, it's George Tarleton. He gets put in this thing. He was like this average schlub, and takes over. So there's a Frankenstein monster aspect to him, but then there's also this like toddler with a gun aspect to him. Like, why did the most average person on the planet with the biggest resentments get handed all this weaponry, all this power, all this intellect, but he can't, power is nothing without control, and he has no control over his power. So that idea, and also just the fact that he's this gigantic face, there's no subtlety to him. And he thinks he's being subtle and thinks like an eye roll to him is a billboard going, I think this sucks. Like he can't get away with any subtle emotions. It's all gigantic. So there's so many comedic areas to play in here. And then also the fact that I want to conquer the world as Emperor M.O.D.O.K, but then also have a loving, secure family in the suburbs. I will have both. I see no problem with having both. Like there's no such thing as choice or sacrifice with M.O.D.O.K.
Yeah, or he wants to conquer the world, but like he hasn't really thought of like why. You know what I mean? Just because he can and he thinks he should. Like there's no end goal.
I mean, running everything. Yeah, you're right. He hasn't figured out his why. He has the drive, but he doesn't have the why.
I love actually that we don't really see his like origin story in this show. Do you know what I mean? Like we see him in college. He's just like a big head kid with like a backwards visor in the dorm, like that's all we get. Yeah. So we know what happened before that, or maybe he was born like that, or who knows, and how we got to where he is.
Or maybe he's misremembering it. That's another fun thing about M.O.D.O.K is because he's so angry and resentful and everything, and he's always going to try to make himself look good. Can even he trust his memories? I don't know. But there's a lot of, again, a big billboard size face thinking it's being subtle and taking everything seriously was just so much fun to write and really fun to play in the booth.
I mean, you have to imagine if he's had a big billboard like face his whole life, that he was shit on a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And that maybe gave him a chip on his shoulder to some effect.
He was born with no chill. And so, yeah. So in a way, he's almost like the version of those people. And we've both met people like this where they are told at one point in their life that, well, you're being obnoxious or what you're doing here is kind of mean or something. And whereas there's 90% of people will go, oh, okay, that was some insight. Maybe I should change. Maybe I should grow. And there's always that 10% that's like, well, I'm just gonna be double that then, if that's your problem. Like, and they just amplify what they know everyone hates about them. Like, you've got to deal with this. I don't need to grow, And I've met people. We've all met people like that. And so he's like the nth version of that.
He's also, I mean, like, he's self-described like an organism designed only for killing, but also I don't see, the issue for me is like, okay, Jody loves him. His kids maybe love him just because he's like their dad or whatever. But like, does he have the capacity for love? Like, he wants to be a good father. He wants to be a good husband, but like, is that possible for him? Or is it like his quests for vengeance contradictory to that very nature?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much. I think that what his initial problem is, he has the ability to love whatever loves him back, which is not how love works. He thinks that's how love works because in his mind, it's a computer program. You do this, and then you get this reaction back. You get an equal reward back for what your input should be the same as your output. And that's not, love is not, when you say, I love you, you shouldn't say it like you're holding a gun to someone's head. So that's one of the many journeys he has to go on. So he has a capacity to love. At the current time, though, his vision of what love is wrong, or it's very damaged. I
think you could also, I don't know, there's part of me also that's like how a marriage changes over time, or how a relationship changes over time. Like 1 year in to someone dating is very different than 20 years of being married. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're on stage 7 or whatever of that marriage. Like, a lot of things have changed. So he might not be able to understand, well, this was working. She loves me. What's the difference? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's another thing that's always bothered me about, and we went out of our way not to do on this show, is the state of grace of a lot of sitcoms where the husband is a slob and an idiot, and the wife is like, oh, my honey, I can't. But then next episode, they're back, they're married and everything's fine. Like, they've reset so they can have another set of wacky adventures. Look, I love The Simpsons, but at this point, Marge would have divorced him. And that should be, so we went out of our way not to have a state of grace on this show. We do not want a state of grace. We want that things change and people are like, no, I'm not putting up with this. Not acceptable. Not, I'm not doing this. And then you've got to deal with those things. And as big as the consequences for failing at world domination are, there's also consequences for being a shitty husband and a absentee dad. There's consequences, and those can hit just as hard. So we wanted to, I don't want to make it sound like a Bergman film. It's done very comedically, but all that's in there.
When MODOK's life does sort of start hitting the skids, there's some pretty funny details, and the writing on the show is really great. Do you have favorite aspects of that? I love kids party size lasagna. Like, that's, I know what that is. We all know what that is. But it's a very funny detail, like stuff like that.
There's a really good episode. Well, I don't want to talk because that's one that I wrote. I don't want to say I wrote it, but then the room really amped it up, where it was the idea of M.O.D.O.K is now separated and going, well, then I've got to build my own life. I've got to I got to make new friends. And his absolute inability to do that, because it's so alien to him, they had a lot of fun doing that. And there's also there's an episode that I really love where he bonds with his daughter, with Melissa, at a retreat that is so well written, and it's all supervillain stuff, but done in such a touching way, because Jody is just a budding supervillain, but they bond there was like some moments where you're like, oh, that's like kind of a beautiful daddy-daughter moment that kind of landed with me. I can't believe so again, we had, the writing staff was so amazing at always looking at the human first, and then we could have fun with the Easter eggs and the Marvel references and the crazy. There's you guys put it on your website. There's a mad scientist fight that one of our Cullen Crawford,
yeah.
Oh my God, he went to town writing that, and then the stupid buddy people just, and it's such an incredible sequence.
I just actually talked to Jordan about that. We could have walked through that scene. I love you know, he was like, all of it was on the page, but then I personally do think the animation like made it so it's like these like quick beats, like you can feel the rhythm of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's fast and it's great.
Well, like I always say, animators have to be as good at actors as actors are, and for the voice actors. So you can see the moments of decision making going on, and Monica, like, you know, okay, got you on this one. Oh, this didn't work. Like, that's all in the body language and the faces. That has to be just as much part of the action as the crazy gadgets and special effects. You have to see these people trying to make decisions in that thing. The fact that she pile drives that monkey is just that makes me laugh every time. As she grabs a monkey and pile drives it.
I love the inhaler where she like gets big again. Yeah, I'm like all of it.
Yeah, and also the fact that they just like their C, D, and E options are a devolving injection and then a ray that de-ages you. Like that's their like that isn't even the first thing I go to in a fight. That's how advanced science we are.
And it's all readily accessible. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't have to go find it somewhere. It's all just like built in and they're ready to activate it at any given time.
Like apps on a phone to them. It is. It's apps on a phone.
Speaking of visuals, how did you guys sort of decide on where, like, you know, M.O.D.O.K has been drawn by a number of different people. How did you guys sort of land on what you wanted him to look like for the show?
I mean, we really just stayed with Kirby. Big, thick lines, big expressions. And it's also what made us decide to do 3D. We went to different animation houses. We were looking at some 2D options, but Stupid Buddy and they sent us this test, and just the depth and detail and the bigness of it, we were like, not only does this look good, this is the kind of decision Kirby would make. Kirby would go, it's got to be 3D. My stuff is 3D. Like, can't just be 2D. My stuff's too big to be. Like, we literally were thinking that's what Kirby would choose. What would Kirby do?
It's got to be gratifying in some sense. And this happens with me, like where I'll be working on something and I'm like, see, mom and dad, like I should have watched so much TV when I was little, you know, like, was it gratifying to be like my years of comics, my huge base of knowledge of something that, you know, I just had for me is now paying off in this world.
Not only my years of comics, but those years of reading all those comics. And then what was just as valuable were the times in between when you would read a comic and then go, when Doc Ock isn't out robbing a bank, is he back does he have an apartment? Like, he's got to go to the bathroom. He's got to take those arms off or like wash himself or get food, or does he like to sit and watch a TV show or read a book? Otherwise, what's he doing all this for? Those moments of what are the in between of these characters' lives like, the villains and the heroes. You know, there must be a time where they're just like, I just want to sit. You know, that moment that it's weirdly powerful for me is at the end of the Avengers when they're all just sitting having shawarma. It's like, that is why we defended the world, so that people can just sit and have food and just talk and have a day. You know, like that's just as valuable. So those little moments, I remember I would always think about stuff like that. You know, what is that?
It's such a weird line to walk, though. Like, like I've been with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, I really like the idea of like, oh fuck, like if you kill someone for 80 years, like if you were killing people for 80 years, like you need therapy. Like there needs like some shit is going on, you know. Or if all these people disappeared, like what happened to their houses? Like who took care of their, you know, whatever. Like all of that ticky tacky stuff. But then you're also walking this thin line of like, but don't we want to see these guys just like beat people up? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, what is this line? I think you guys have managed to do it with the show, which is great.
Well, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was incredible because they were kind of questioning everything that had gone before in their own movies. They were questioning, was that right to do that? And to give the Baron those lines about, do you believe in super soldiers? Well, then you're also a supremacist. You're no different than me. And you're like, the Nazi wants to stop the super soldier. Wait a minute. Like, it was all just anything to keep you off your balance, to me, made it so much more fun. And I also remember I actually got a little, this is going to sound so weird, but that final scene when Bucky is back with Sam at the boat and they're having the party and he's just playing with the kids, and like, that's what he's wanted to have all this time. He just wanted to have a life, you know, and just hang out with people and have some pecan pie and maybe eat a little too much and tell story. Like, that's what you're supposed to do with your life. You're supposed to live your life. You can't just be fighting all the time. And you see what the effects are of that with with the new Captain America character. It's his whole life has been and he finally just snaps because he's never had any downtime just to hang with people.
And that's what's happening to M.O.D.O.K in some sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if your whole life is vengeance, like, how, you can't exist in the world.
You can't do that. You can't. It just, it kills you. It kills you.
Coincidentally, I'm going from here to go talk to Paula Pell about Girls 5 Evas. So,
oh my God, tell her you were just, we text all the time. There's a scene on this new season of AP Bio. Thank God they shot over my shoulder. She's telling a story about how she was picked up, how her grandfathers were killed by a tornado. I was laughing but I'm like doing that. I think there were a couple shots where like your shoulders are shaking so hard. We have to redo the scene. And I always felt bad because I was ruining her takes. I was like, is there any way you cannot have me in the shot? They're like, no, you have to be. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. She fucking kills me. She is such a genius. Oh my God. Tell her. I'll text her after this when you're done talking.
She's really funny in it too. She's very good.
So much.
MODOK! And do you know what MODOK stands for?
Mental organism designed only
For killing.
Hate it!
For killing.